All right, moving on to digestive word roots. So same thing. Most of these have to do with structures in the body. Some might describe the structures that we're talking about. You get it. Okay, we'll start with appendo. What does appendo mean? Like an appendectomy. Ectomy means surgical removal. What are we taking out of the body in an appendectomy? The appendix. Okay, so appendectomy, surgical removal of the appendix. Okay. Bucco, like buccinator. What is buck? Where do you find the buccinator? Now it's the muscle, right? The buccinator. Buccinator, right about here. Bucco means cheek. Okay, so the buccinator is a muscle found in the cheek, and it's the muscle that kind of squeezes and pushes food back in towards the teeth to help us perform mastication, of course. So bucco means cheek. So if somebody's talking about the like buccal fat, they're talking about cheek fat. Anyway, moving on. Cheilo, like cheilitis. What do you think? Cheilitis. Now this has to do with the lips. Okay, so part of the lips in cheilitis are becoming inflamed. It's usually the corners of the mouth. Angular cheilitis is what that's called, where you might have cracks in the lips, in the corners of the mouth. Doesn't sound very fun. Yeah, I'm sure I've had it before. Not the best. Okay, Chole. Now here's one of those examples, like I talked about, where it's an E instead of an O as the connecting letter. Okay, so cholecystitis is an example. Cholelithiasis is another example. Okay, what do you think? So what does chole mean? So cholecystitis. Cyst means bladder. Itis means inflammation. But what type of bladder do we have in the digestive system? In the digestive system, we have the gallbladder, and the gallbladder specifically holds bile inside of it. So cholecystitis, inflammation of the gallbladder or the bile bladder. Okay, so chole, bile. So cholelithiasis is basically gallstones, the development of gallstones in the gallbladder produced by having too much bile in your gallbladder. It can be caused by lots of different things, but anyways, cholangio. Moving on, cholangio. So angio, I see that term in there. Angio means vessel, right? Chole, like chole, which we just talked about, means bile. So it's a bile vessel. Like cholangitis, inflammation of the bile vessel, a vessel that carries bile, either from the liver or from the gallbladder down to the duodenum, part of your small intestine. Inflammation of that can cause bile to back up, which can result in cholelithiasis. Not fun. It's weird how it's all connected, right? Moving on. Colo, like colitis or colon. Now, I want you to think about, in the digestive system, we have one specific organ that has the term colon in it numerous times, based on which part we're talking about. We have ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon. Those are all part of the large intestine. Okay, so colo means large intestine. So a colonoscopy, putting a camera into the large intestine to get a view of what's going on in the large intestine. If you're looking for something like diverticulosis, got to do a colonoscopy to take a look. Okay? Moving on, Dento. So a dentist is a specialist, a doctor who specializes in the teeth, right? So dental work, you're getting work done on the teeth. What about Odonto? Like periodontal abscesses. Orthodontist. Ortho means straight. So what in the digestive system do we need to be straight? The teeth, right? So dento and donto both mean teeth. So periodontal abscess, you have some sort of abscess, an infection, a collection of pus around the teeth. An orthodontist is somebody who straightens the teeth. Okay. So donto, teeth. Moving on. What about duodeno? I just kind of mentioned that, right, with the bile duct. Where does the bile duct empty bile into? The duodenum, which is part of the small intestine. Okay, so the very first part of the small intestine, the duodenum. So another example, duodenal ulcer, where you have an ulcer in the duodenum, kind of an open sore in the duodenum for some reason. Doesn't sound very awesome. The duodenum is the very last place that digestion occurs in the digestive system. Okay, moving on. Entero. The entero, like gastroenteritis, inflammation of, gastro means stomach. What connects to the stomach? After food is digested, food moves from the stomach into this organ. That entero is the definition of the small intestine. Okay, so and the duodenum is part of the small intestine. So gastroenteritis, inflammation of the stomach and small intestine. So it's usually some sort of stomach bug, gastroenteritis. Okay. Esophago, like esophagitis, esophageal cancer, gastroesophageal reflux disease, all examples. The esophagus. Okay, so the esophagus, that tube that comes from the throat, from the pharynx, all the way down to the stomach, esophagus, stomach, esophagus, esophagus, that connects to the stomach, of course. Next up, gastro, like gastritis. I think I just mentioned, what gastro means. Gastrology, the study of the stomach. Gastric acids, gastric juices, gastric bypass surgery, all has to deal with the stomach. So gastro means stomach. What about gingivo? Like gingivitis. Gingivitis, you can use a Listerine mouthwash, right, to help prevent gingivitis. Brush your teeth too to prevent gingivitis, inflammation, itis of the gums. Okay, so the gums can become inflamed. Gingivitis results. Okay, glosso. What does glosso mean? Hypoglossal is a good example. The hypoglossal nerve. What about a glossary? See, sometimes these terms can kind of work with other words that don't necessarily mean this, but they're still connected. I guess like glossary is an example. Hypoglossal, something below the tongue. Okay, so glosso means tongue. Glossary, tongue, language, speech, right? What about hepato? I talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking, our brief introduction to medical terminology. What does hepato mean? Hepato, hepatitis is an example. Hepatic portal vein is an example. Hepato means liver. Okay, so hep or hepato is liver. Inflammation of the liver, hepatitis. Okay, moving on, ilio. Now, this is the very last part of the small intestine. Sounds like the name of a bone in your pelvis, right? Ileocecal sphincter is an example. It's where this structure joins with the cecum, which is the entrance to the large intestine. Okay, so this part is the ileum. So the very last part of the small intestine is the ileum. So the first part, the duodenum, the last part, the ileum, then we have another part right in the middle. Jejuno refers to the middle part. What does jejuno mean? What does that refer to? Of course, it refers to the jejunum. Okay, so the three parts of the small intestine in order: the duodenum, the jejunum, then the ileum. Jejunostomy is an example where we use jejunum. Most of the time, you're just going to use the term jejunum, right? You're not going to see very many terms that have anything to do with the jejunum other than just referencing the jejunum. Okay, labio. Labiomental groove is an example. Labiomental groove right here. You can't really see it on me with my enormous beard and mustache. But that part right under the nose that goes down to the lips, right? So labio means lip. I think of the female reproductive system, labia, lip, same thing. Yeah, we might get to that with reproductive system word roots as well. So just keep that in mind. Labia, labio means lip. Okay, linguo, like a linguist. Somebody who is bilingual. Bi means two. Linguo means, what about lengua tacos? Delicious. Amazing. And that's probably going to be my lunch. Now that I think about it, lengua means tongue. Okay. So a linguist, somebody who's good with the tongue, with speaking, good with words. Somebody who is bilingual, somebody who speaks two languages, right? And then of course, lengua tacos, tongue tacos, delicious tacos, amazing tacos. Can you tell I'm a little hungry? Lengua means taco. Linguo means tongue. Lengua means taco, of course. To me, anyway, lengua means taco. Linguo means tongue. Odonto means, and we kind of went over Dento earlier, right? Odontoblast is an example. Odonto also means teeth. Okay, so Dento means teeth. Odonto means teeth. I don't know why there's just a random O before Dento at that point. Yeah, I didn't make the language, all right? Don't yell at me. Odonto means teeth. Okay. What about oro? Like the oral cavity. What about the muscle orbicularis oris? Where do you find that? Orbicularis, circle. Oris, where is it around? Oris, the mouth, right? So oro means mouth. The oral cavity is the mouth. Okay? So oro, mouth. What about pancreato? Pancreatitis. Pancreatic juice. Helps to digest our food just a little bit more than the duodenum. Pancreatic juice. It is the pancreas, of course. Pancreato. Pancreas. Pancreatic cancer. Pancreas. What about pharyngo? Like pharyngitis. Pharyngitis, inflammation of what is pharyngo? The pharynx, right? So what is the pharynx? Pharynx is also known as the throat. Okay, so inflammation of the throat, pharyngitis. So if you're doing something like screaming a lot, me when my kids won't stop being so loud, or if I'm telling my oldest kid to clean his room, of course, pharyngitis. So if you go to a loud concert, you're screaming all night, right? You might get a little bit of pharyngitis, maybe a little bit of laryngitis as well. If you get something like strep throat, you're definitely going to have pharyngitis. The flu, you might get pharyngitis with as well. So inflammation of the throat. Okay, procto, like proctology or proctologist. These are doctors and types of medicine that deal with the anus. So a proctologist would be somebody who deals with the anus, maybe the rectum as well. Okay. Moving on, pyloro. So what pyloro refers to a part of the stomach. It's the bottom portion, and it's called the pylorus. Okay. Well, again, some of these are just, the word and the definition are just that's just what they are, right? So pylorus stenosis is an example that you can use. It's essentially it. So the very bottom portion of the stomach is the pylorus. Yeah. What about recto? Like rectorrhagia. That's not knowing what the suffix is for rhagia. Rectorrhagia. Anyway, recto means rectum. Moving on. Cialo, like cialaria. Like when I order a pizza and that pizza arrives and I smell the pizza, I start getting cialaria for sure. That's cialo means saliva. Okay, so cialaria. My mouth is watering. Basically, you're producing a lot of saliva. Cialaria. Okay, moving on. Sigmoido. Sigmoid is part of the large intestine, the very last part of the small or large intestine, last part of the large intestine. So we have the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and then the sigmoid colon. So again, another one of those terms where the definition is basically the word root itself. So sigmoido means sigmoid. It refers to the sigmoid colon. Sigmoidectomy is surgical removal of the sigmoid colon. So if somebody has something like diverticulitis, where they have ulcers and stuff in the large intestine, specifically in the sigmoid colon and the descending colon, they might have that part of the large intestine just completely removed, taken out. Sigmoidectomy. That's what that refers to. And then finally, stomato. Now, a lot of you might immediately think stomach because you got the STO letters in there like stomach. It's, STOM, excuse me. A after that. Whoa, so many. Doesn't mean stomach, right? Stomatitis is an example. So stomato. Now I can kind of look at this and I have kind of an easy way to remember it. So I see the word tomato in there. Take out the S at the beginning. You see tomato. And where do you put tomatoes? Well, I mean, I personally put them in the garbage because tomatoes are disgusting. But in general, if I were to eat a tomato, I put the tomato in my mouth, right? Ugh, gross. Tomatoes. I just can't do it. I'm Italian and I don't like tomatoes. What's wrong with me? I think it's a textures thing. I don't know, flavors off too. Anyway, so stomato means mouth. So stomatitis, inflammation of the mouth. Okay. And that just about does it for our digestive word roots.